Thank you so much for being here today. It's great to see so many familiar faces and meet some new friends. My name is Molly Hughes. I am with the Denver Post, more specifically Denver Post TV, which is something new. If you haven't checked it out, I hope you do. And I want to welcome you to the 2015 Public Safety Luncheon. Who was brought here by a friend? Who's here for the first time? All right, so let me give you a little idea of what this is about. Has anyone here ever had to call 911? Wow, that's pretty good. Low number. Anyone ever have to call the fire department for help or for medical response? All right, anybody deliver cookies on Thanksgiving to the fire department? Or the police department or the DA's office? One lady in the back, thank you. Reality is most of us don't do that, and we call these public officials and their employees in time of need. And so about 5 years ago, Josh Hanfling came up with the idea to give an opportunity to have an appreciation lunch and let them know that we appreciate their work throughout our community to keep us safe all day, every day, as best they can throughout the year. So that's why we are here today. Let's start with a round of applause for all of our public safety officials. We have a new public safety official in the House. It is really his first public appearance outside of his swearing-in ceremony and his news conference to be introduced, and that is Sheriff Patrick Firman. Welcome to Denver. You will hear a little bit from each of these public safety officials coming up. We've given them each 3 to 5 minutes to tell us a little bit about what is new and what is different in what they're taking on in their departments this year. Sound good? Sound good? All right. So this is our 5th year of this luncheon. And Josh asked that I tell you a little bit about what's new this year, and I see that first on the list is Molly Hughes. So I think I'm in the category of what's old is new again. But I'm happy to be here, and I hope to come back. Hi, RD. We also have students and professors from the Auraria campus. We thought it'd be a good idea to introduce youngsters in our community to the inner workings of public safety and help them get a better understanding of the importance of the roles these people up here on the stage do for us. Also, we have some new guests from Ridgeview Academy in Watkins, Ohio. So let's give a round of applause for them and the students from Auraria. And of course, events like this are not possible without generous people in our community. We have the founder and CEO of Columbine Health as our presenting sponsor. You'll hear from David McReynolds in just a moment, but let's have a round of applause for Mr. David McReynolds. And also the generosity of Mr. Walter Eisenberg and Sage Hospitality for underwriting our luncheon here today. Thanks, Walter. I do a lot of events like this, and hands down, these are 2 of the most generous people in our community, and we thank you. So anytime you can support their businesses, we ask that you do that as a way of showing thanks for all the giving back that they do. This hotel, by the way, would be a place to come as one example, right, Walter? All right. So David McReynolds, we'd like to bring you up to introduce the mayor, and we'll hear a few words from both of them. Mr. David McReynolds.
Thanks, Molly. And I think in the new category, Molly's a great addition. So it's let's give Molly a round of applause for being here. So my job is to introduce the mayor, but first I want to just thank you all. We've been a sponsor of this for a number of years, and I think this is an amazing thing that Josh has put together, and we really need to support our public safety officials and our law enforcement officials, especially kind of in the climate that we're in now. I think it's really important more than ever to support all of these folks and to let them know how much we care about what they do for our community and communities across the country. I'm going to bring the mayor up, and the mayor is going to introduce the Jerry Kennedy Lifetime Achievement Award, and Jerry Kennedy's in the audience. Let's give Jerry a round of applause. He's the namesake for the... And so without further ado, and one of the great mayors in America, Mayor Michael Hancock.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm so glad I don't have to sit at the head of this head table here. We get to watch all of you eat. Before I present the award, just a couple of comments I'd like to make. First, I want to acknowledge the presence of a very good friend of mine and a great counterpart just next door to the city of Denver, the great mayor of Glendale, Mike Donovan. Stand up. Mike Donovan, good dude. We have quite a few members of the Denver City Council who are here, and I'm just going to read their names, and if you would stand up and let's acknowledge our members of the great leaders of Denver City Council. Council President Chris Herndon, Councilman Kevin Flynn, Jolyn Clark, Councilman Wayne New, Councilwoman Debbie Ortega, Councilman Paul Lopez, Councilman Paul Cashman, and Councilman Espinoza. Let's give our great public servants a round of applause. We also have former City Council President Elbert Wedgeworth is in the house. Council President Wedgeworth. From the state, we have State Representative Dan Pabon, State Representative Paul Rosenthal, and State Representative Angela Williams, who are here. Thank you all. And what would a luncheon at this time of year be without candidates? A better luncheon. No, that's a joke. We have District Attorney candidate, CU Regent Mike Kerrigan is here, and State Representative Beth McCann is here as well. And I believe Deputy District Attorney Keith Boyd, who is a candidate as well, is here as well. Keith, there he is. Thank you. We also want to welcome our police chief from the city of Aurora. Chief Nick Metz is here, who's been here for about 8 months. Let me join in thanking Walter Eisenberg as well for hosting the luncheon. Of course, David McReynolds for his continual generous support of this luncheon. And we all got to thank our good friend Josh Hanflin for his tremendous effort and always making sure that this luncheon happens, and it's his vision that we are here to participate in. So, Josh, I know, hey, that's my bald brother back there. Josh Hanflin, thank you so much. We truly appreciate our law enforcement, and you know it's also important that we go through moments of transition, and we did not get a chance to at least publicly thank Elias Diggins for standing the gap as the sheriff of this county. And so while we're here, Sheriff Diggins, thank you very much for your service during the interim. So we are living in an amazing time, and thanks to the determined, energetic spirit of everyone who calls this city home, we are creating a vibrant city that is experiencing one of the most dynamic moments in its history. Our challenge going forward is to ensure Denver's growth occurs thoughtfully and intentionally, and to enable everyone in our city to participate in our progress and to protect the quality of life that we all believe makes this city so special. The 2016 budget proposal directly addresses this challenge and will allow us to grow smart and to meet the changing needs of our city while ensuring we protect businesses and neighborhoods, improve public safety, and enhance the overall quality of life. To ensure our safety departments are accountable, transparent, and a partner with the community, Denver will continue to face challenges together with honesty and integrity. So by the end of this year, all Denver police officers will be wearing body cameras. Denver has also hired more officers and will continue to hire more officers. I want that to be very clear. The goal is to make our city, help our city remain one of the safest cities in the country. In 2016, we'll continue to make significant reforms in the Denver Sheriff's Department, bolstered by the city's $24 million allotment or allocation for 2016. This significant funding increase will allow the department to implement comprehensive reforms recommended by Hillard Hines, the OIR group, the independent monitor, the city auditor, and of course community groups all throughout the city. That includes hiring as many as 43 new uniform personnel, accelerating recruitment efforts with the goal of graduating 200 recruits for the department's academy by early 2017, expanding training for deputies, especially on how to manage vulnerable populations and new use of force protocols, expanding leadership training for the department's supervisors and command staff, and implementing a jail management system, thereby modernizing our Denver's critical technology systems. And of course, we're planning to build out the final 2 floors of Building 24 at the county jail, again relieving some of the overcrowding we have seen. I think it's apropos that we also thank Executive Director of Safety Stephanie O'Malley for driving the reforms of the Sheriff's Department over the last 4 years. The past year. It feels like 4. Since Stephanie has been instrumental in the foundation for building the foundation for transformation, which will be led by our new sheriff. And I appreciate Molly mentioning our new sheriff, Patrick Firman. I'm also proud of the work that we're doing in other safety agencies, and we'll hear a little bit about that in a few moments. But I want you to know that we remain committed and recognize that in order for us to be a safe city, it hasn't been just about law enforcement. We must have a world-class police department, and yes, a world-class sheriff's department and fire department. And we must also, and Scott's going to be up here to speak, but thank our paramedics as well, who are our partners with law enforcement on the streets. But it takes all of us to make this city safe. Every member who works in Denver, lives in Denver, that's how we remain a safe city. And we must not ever surrender that responsibility as citizens that we have in this great city. It takes these individuals to make us safe. But at the end of the day, the people who live here hold most of the power. And so let us not forget that responsibility as we move forward today. And now it's my pleasure to tee up the Lifetime Achievement Award. And it goes to an individual who no doubt deserves this. Division Chief Joseph Gonzalez grew up in Denver, in Denver's Globeville and North Denver neighborhoods, and attended North High School. After serving our country as a U.S. Marine, he joined the Denver Fire Department in 1971 and began his rise through the ranks. While assigned to the Denver's Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting, he was incident commander for the response to the November 1987 crash of Continental Airlines Flight 1713, which crashed while taking off in a snowstorm from Stapleton International Airport. In 1988, Chief Gonzalez took the lead in developing FAA-mandated controls for airport fueling that were adopted nationally and are still in use today. And in 1990, he was assigned to technical services where he oversaw the construction that transitioned Denver's Fire Department's communications center at 950 Josephine Street in the city's combined communications center. Chief Gonzalez became Division Chief of Fire Prevention and Investigation in 1998. The role of the division has changed since then, but its purpose remains to save lives and property by understanding and preventing disaster in the first place. That purpose is something Chief Gonzalez knows well, and it's now absolutely my honor to present him with this year's Denver's Public Safety Lifetime Achievement Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Gonzalez. That's it. Is this the award? That's it? Okay. Thank you, Mitch. Whoa! Turn around. Congratulations, Chief. All right, I hope so.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I really don't have a whole lot to say other than I have been around. It's been a good career. Anything beats the jungles of Vietnam, but it's been a good career, and I've had the opportunity to do a lot of things and get an education while I was on the department, and work for some very, very good people, and work with some very good people. You don't get or receive an award like this without the cooperation and the support of a lot of different people. And over the years, any accomplishment that has been credited to me, there were a lot of people behind doing the work, and I appreciate it. And I thank all of you today. I'm a little moved. My wife, we've been married a long time. Hi, Tony. We've been married a long time, and unfortunately, the woman that raised her, her health is failing, and she had to get back to San Francisco and take care of things. But she would have been here like she's always been with me throughout my life. So.
Congratulations, Chief. Full-blown retirement. You're gonna be able to have a lot more fun now with your wife? You can tell me after. All right. All right. Okay. Not retiring today, but when he does, he's going to have a lot more fun with his wife. And we wish the best for her mother by proxy. All right, so time to hear from our public safety officials. And again, we asked each of them to come up with something that's new and different that they're doing in their department this year. And 3 to 5 minutes, and then each one of them is going to pass the baton off to the next speaker down the table. And then afterwards, we'll have a little roundtable discussion. So let's get started with Denver District Attorney Mitch Morrissey.
Thank you. I'm going to talk to you about one particular program that we have. And, you know, no one of us really has a program in Denver. What we do is collaborate. If it's around DNA projects, which I've talked to you about before, the Rosandom Domestic Violence Center, all of those things are collaborations. And this particular topic, the gun crime project that we have, again, is a collaboration with my office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, ATF, obviously the Denver Police Department, the Aurora Police Department, Lakewood Police Department, and I probably left someone out. But it's a great partnership, so I'm going to move through this as quickly as I can.
Police forces today must deal with the rising tide of gun violence, while resources dwindle and safety demands are made by the public. With so much at stake, new solutions are needed to exploit the key information from every cartridge case, from every crime scene, and every recovered firearm. Solutions that are automated, accurate, and timely so that guns can be taken out of the hands of criminals before they can hurt or kill again.
So this is our gun crime program, and what we're doing is unique in the United States. Obviously, when it comes to gun crime, the vast majority of murders in the United States, non-fatal shootings in the United States, are committed by people that do not legally have the right to own a gun. They're either prohibited for some reason, convicted felons, for example, or they're too young to possess a gun in our state. But the majority of those crimes in the United States are committed by people that can't even legally have a gun. If you look at the annual rates in the United States, you can see that homicides, about 70% of homicides are committed by firearms, 40% of robberies or aggravated robberies, 20% of aggravated assaults, which are the non-fatal assaults where weapons are involved. So what we use is the NIBIN system, National Integrated Ballistics Information System. It is a ballistics database, and what it does is it compares shell casings from crime scenes with known guns, and it also compares bullets. But primarily, this project is about those shell casings that we find at a homicide scene. The nice thing about the guns that our gang members tend to use these days are ones that spray shell casings all over the crime scene when they fire. So we collect those, we put them in the NIBIN system. They're collected in Aurora and Lakewood. All of those come to NIBIN, and this is a program that basically is real-time clues then that go to the detectives of the different department. The reason Denver's different is because we do it so quickly. So within 24 hours or less, usually those shell casings are put into the system. They are then compared with the shell casings from other crimes around the city, other crimes around the state, other crimes around the country.
Going to get some money on March 8th of 2013 almost killed this man. He took out his cash, but someone else wanted it too.
He's sitting in the drive-thru over here, and he comes over like this.
And shoots as the victim is getting away. This is attempted murder.
The suspect in this case ran away on foot.
But even having video of it wasn't much help to Denver police investigators or their partners at the ATF.
Crimes like this where we don't have any suspect information, there's nothing really to go on. Before NIBIN, we have 2 empty shell casings, but that's all we had.
Shell casings from crime scenes are uploaded to a national database and compared.
We're able to correlate with previously entered images and try to establish links between current crimes and crimes that have happened previously.
This fancy computer and forensic examiner Charles Reno's eyes are just the first steps. If he finds a link, it goes to a team of investigators at the Crime Gun Intelligence Center, a partnership between the ATF, Denver, Aurora, and Lakewood Police. Remember our ATM robber and shooter? Cops found the shell casings on the street and entered them into NIBIN, but they still didn't have a match. The picture was grainy, the description vague. It was looking like another unsolved case. Until just 6 days later, our guy struck again near Civic Center Park. Another robbery with the same gun. This time, he got caught. The Denver Crime Lab tested his gun, just like they do in every case. The test linked the gun to the previously unsolved attempted robbery. And the man caught with the weapon, Dante King.
He's obviously not afraid to shoot at people or rob them, so he's a good person to get off the street.
King took a plea deal in both cases and is serving 4 years in the youthful offender system.
You think 4 years isn't much, but 4 years is the maximum sentence he could get as a juvenile. He was a juvenile, one of those people that can't legally have a gun in our state. So I'm just going to give you quick statistics on how many cases have been filed out of this program since 2013. We filed 51 state cases. Those are the types of crimes that we want to prevent, the types of crime we want to catch individuals that are committing these violent crimes, attempted murders, robberies, and assaults. We have gotten 51 individuals so far, and we believe that they have been involved in 130 shootings throughout the metro area. Our office has filed 34 cases. Remember, some of these cases will be in Lakewood. Some of these cases will also be in Arapahoe County. And the average sentence that we're getting now is 8 years and 9 months. Some are juveniles, so that brings that down. And then there were 5 individuals that we weren't able to file a case on, but based on the information and showing that they used a gun or had a gun, we were able to get their parole revoked and get them sent back to the penitentiary for what they were on parole for. There's one more statistic, and that's the federal statistics. And our partners in the feds have filed 22 cases. And those are felons with gun cases, but they're also straw man cases. And those are the people that are buying these guns legally and making an awful lot of money on the streets of Denver selling these guns to individuals that can't go into a gun store and pass a background check. So this is a great program. We've had great success with it. We have gotten a lot of national recognition, and I think Dr. LeBerge is going to talk a little bit about the awards that it's won. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Josh Hamfling again, and it is my honor now to introduce Stephanie O'Malley, who is our manager of safety. Thanks for supporting us. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that. And also want to take the time to thank Josh Hamfling and, of course, Laura Douglas for organizing today's event. As I was coming in the back, I met some students, and they were from Metro, and they kindly reminded me that they talk about all of us during their class sessions. And I thought, I probably should go sit in on one of those class sessions and understand exactly what it is that they're saying. In Denver, I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding as to what the role of the Executive Director of Public Safety's office is, and so I just want to kind of talk about that for a moment. In addition to issuing discipline decisions, which you all are all familiar with, on behalf of both the fire, police, and sheriff departments, my office also provides oversight, leadership, and guidance into all of Denver's safety departments, including 911, community corrections, our safety youth programs, and Denver's gang reduction initiative. We guide policy decisions and assist in developing long-term goals that will hopefully ensure optimal delivery of the full spectrum of safety services. Importantly, we also facilitate a collaborative effort with the Department of Public Safety. For example, we work collectively to identify how public safety service delivery is perceived by our residents and citizens of the city and county of Denver, and we want to gauge the effectiveness of the departments as a whole. Sometimes we have a tendency to operate in silos, and part of my role and responsibility is to bring those silos into a bridge together. As was mentioned, we use crime data to identify public safety concerns throughout the city, and we employ effective crime prevention efforts. We leverage industry best practices to employ strategies and programs that affect accreditation and industry ratings for public safety. Process improvements, that's a big part of what we do in our safety department. It's also made to advance efficiency and transparency of the employee discipline process, something that the public and each one of you, of course, is interested in. There is a continual focus to increase public confidence in the department and in overall safety. Recently, I had the opportunity to bring all of our leaders inside of the department together to identify additional opportunities for improvement across our departments. After several hours of being together and thoughtful dialogue, 4 areas of priority were identified, including, of course, accountability, communication, collaboration, and customer service. As a whole, under the area of accountability, we will focus on things like agency metrics, spending versus our actual budget allocations, collaborative tools, some of which you've already heard about, NIBINs and body cams, which you'll hear about later, that are also required to complete tasks, timeliness of addressing complaints inside of the department, something that is cross-pollinating across all of our safety departments, and of course, the number of disciplinary actions that are taken. Regarding collaboration, we will focus on our interaction with the public and with employees within the safety departments. Our regional partnerships that we develop, recruitment is a big one, trying to diversify all of our safety agencies in a great way to be reflective of the communities in which we serve. Our citizen academies are just to name a few. Our communication goals include monitoring the number of efforts to reduce crime, maintain a bolstered social media presence, that's how we get our word out, but across all of our safety agencies. We like to track the number of community meetings that we attend and the touches that we make into our community, but most importantly, the value that is gained from those experiences. Regarding customer service, we will be focused on things that the public cares about in a great way, such as response times, recruitment, responsiveness to concerns, and new and valuable programs. Something near and dear to me that I've tried to focus on since I've been in this role and responsibility, and I mean this as a big one. A great amount of attention is to be given to the well-being of our employees throughout a department-wide wellness program. This is aimed at developing a culture of resiliency. I can't tell you the things that our both sworn officers and our civilian employees go through and see in their role and responsibilities inside the safety department. My job is to be the caretaker around those issues. With a wellness and resiliency program, it's to focus on stress management, physical health, mental, and spiritual well-being. As the mayor mentioned, with the financial support for the wellness initiative in the 2016 budget, the department is steadfast on giving the initiative very great attention. As a department, we will continue to roll up our sleeves and develop strategies to enhance those areas of priority, areas that directly impact how people feel about their safety agencies. We'll ask ourselves, how can we continue and enhance our engagement with our community? We'll work to continue to increase transparency and identify opportunities for employee empowerment. We'll continue to seek opportunities to improve the public's perception of safety, something that we're all concerned about. That's what you can continue to expect from the Denver's Department of Public Safety, a dedicated, cooperative focus aimed at a continual evaluation of what we do with an eye towards assessing if there's a way that we can do it much better. With that being said, it is now my pleasure to introduce you to Denver Chief of Police, Robert White.
Thank you, Executive Director O'Malley. First, let me thank Josh, and let me congratulate Chief Gonzalez. I want to congratulate you, but I also want to thank you. You know, every day I try to get a message, something positive. I like to learn something new every single day. Today, I want to thank you for today's lesson. I've been married for 36 and some odd years, and every time I go to an event, my wife's there. Sometimes I get the month and the date a little confused. But from now on, I'm going to just say I've been married for a long time. So thanks a lot, Chief. I really appreciate that. You know, obviously this last year, actually the last couple of years have been really challenging for law enforcement across the nation. And I've had the opportunity to speak with chiefs, pretty much every major chief in the country. And there are about 45 major cities, about 45 major chiefs. And we meet annually, and we discuss the issues and the challenges and what's right and what's wrong as relates to our duties and our responsibilities. And I want to tell you, one of the things that have been repeated time and time again of late from the media, and I watch a lot of national news, is as a result of the incident that occurred in Ferguson, there are some that thinks that police officers have sort of held back a little bit, didn't want to put themselves in harm's way where they could be subject to lawsuits. I am here to tell you that the Denver Police Department has not done that. As a matter of fact, over the course of the last year and a half, our productivity has gone up 111%. So that is a result of the good work of the men and women in the department. And as many of them are sitting here, the working police are sitting here on the right, and the managers are sitting way in the back of the room. So we got that order correct. So let's acknowledge our working police officers. I was remiss, actually Eric, the fire chief, and I were remiss to share with our new partner, Patrick, the sheriff, that in these ceremonies, we kind of acquiesce most of our time so you can speak. So you got about an extra 5 or 10 minutes, Patrick. I forgot to tell you that, buddy. What I would like to spend a couple minutes talking about, and the mayor had mentioned it, and the executive director had mentioned it, body cams. Given the challenges of late in law enforcement, I think it's very important that we really speak to the importance of being transparent. And I think body cams are one of those tools that really speaks to our commitment as law enforcement officials and officers of being transparent. Our department, which is actually one of the earlier departments that decided to take on body cams, not as a result of an incident, not as a result of a court decree, or not as a result of the monitor, any of those other things. It was a decision that was made in concert with the executive director, the mayor, and members of the police department, that we wanted to step out and we wanted to send that message out that we are a transparent department, and we wanted to speak to that. Now, the advantages, there are many challenges with body cams, by the way, and this is something that is going to evolve. When do you release the information versus when do people want the information, and not giving it to individuals who are really not entitled to it, and being very protective of citizens' privacy. So a lot of those things are going to evolve. We have a policy that speaks to all of those things, and I will tell you, I suspect as we continue to unfold our program, those challenges and those issues will continue to arise, and we'll pretty much be on top of addressing both of those. Now, there are a couple of things that we hope to get out of body cams, and actually we did a pilot project last December, a 6-month project that actually speaks to that, and really is one of the reasons why we're going to continue the program. Normally what should happen out of an effective body cam program is there'll be fewer complaints on police officers, fewer allegations made from citizens as a result of what police officers are doing and what they're not doing, fewer uses of force by police officers, and actually, ultimately, even fewer arrests by police officers. I will tell you, our 6-month program actually proved most of those facts. We did a 6-month program in District 6. Many of you know District 6 is probably our busiest district. It's the downtown area, the Lodos, a lot of the bars, and a lot of the challenges that occurs as a result of the outcrowd when individuals are leaving those bars. There are a lot of issues and challenges for our officers. So they are the subject to probably most of the complaints. Well, it was 100 of those officers that work in that district that had their body cams for a 6-month plan, for a 6-month pilot project. And it actually proven that there were fewer complaints made by citizens as a result of that, knowing that those officers had on body cams. Also, something that is critically important is what happens when someone files a complaint on a police officer, and it's the police officer's word, and it's the individual that's filing the complaint word. It falls into, and there's no other evidence to support what the police officer is saying or support what the individuals that's filing a complaint. So it runs into a category of not sustained. That means that we really don't know if the facts were there to support the allegations that were made by the citizen, and the officer has no other evidence to support that he or she did not do that particular allegation other than his or her word. A body cam, and our project, our pilot project spoke to this. The body cam takes away that category of not sustained, which is absolutely critical. It speaks to transparency, and it brings credibility to our department. As a matter of fact, as a result of the 6-month project pilot project that we had, the not sustained allegations went down 74%. So we've seen great success with the pilot project. I will tell you that we're in the process of ordering 800 body cams. Those are for the individuals that are actually working in our community, that are in uniform for the most part. They'll be out in your neighborhoods. And starting next month, the first 200 body cams will go out, and by the mid-2016, all 800 of those body cams are going out. We're also in the process of coming up with a policy, which is probably the largest department in the country that's going to have a policy that does this, is to have all of our officers that work off-duty wear body cams. And I have chatted with many chiefs across the country. Some of them are departments considerably larger than ours, and they cannot believe that we're going to have every officer that works off-duty wear a body cam. There are a lot of challenges and financial responsibilities as it relates to that. Many of them have officers that work off-duty, have body cams, but it's only a handful of officers that do it. So we'll probably have close to 1,400 officers. We have probably about 1,400 officers, 1,300 to 1,400 officers that work off-duty, and each of them will be wearing the body cam. Now that policy will probably be in place sometime after January. So we're really excited about it, and I should also mention that the 100 officers that wore the body cams in District 6, pretty much to a person, they supported the program, and they want to make sure that they keep the body cams. So that speaks to that the officers out there, for the most part, are doing the right things, and they're willing to make sure that the community knows that they're out there working hard and doing the right things every single day. So it's now my privilege to introduce the Fire Chief, Eric Tade.
So I knew he couldn't do 2 to 3 minutes, so you won't have to worry about doing 10 minutes, Patrick. So we're supposed to share with you something new that's going on in the fire department. And I think probably the most obvious upfront thing that's new in the fire department is this year we started service in the city of Englewood. One of the things that we've done recently within the fire department is really try to break down borders and break down the walls when it comes to protecting our communities, trying to provide a greater level of regionalism and cost effectiveness when we're providing public safety. And so this year we were fortunate to enter in an agreement with the city of Englewood in which we went ahead and staffed their existing fire stations. They used to have 3 fire stations. We're now staffing 2 of those fire stations. We partnered with Denver Health to provide the EMS care in there, and it has went tremendously well. And so everybody in the metro area benefits from this because you end up having a greater level of communication, coordination, and the big one is you have a cost savings whenever you start reducing the numbers of administrations and duplicative costs. So with the addition of Englewood this year, we now provide service in the city of Sheridan, Skyline Fire District, city of Glendale, city of Englewood. So we've been able to kind of clean up our borders and bring kind of the Denver metro area together, and it's our ability to take our resources that we have in the city and county of Denver, make them available to other communities, at the same time reducing the cost that they were paying for fire service, but having a much higher level of service. So that's something that we're extremely excited and happy about. And along those lines, in addition to just saying, okay, how do we make Denver metro area better? How do we make Denver, the big city in Colorado, help the entire state of Colorado? And so the other thing that we did is we started building a wildland team, and every year we've grown this wildland team. Denver's wildland team has now become a national resource, and we deploy firefighters from Denver all over the United States to provide wildland firefighting services. This year, Colorado was very lucky, and we didn't have a whole lot of wildland fires going on in Colorado, but we've seen California, Oregon, we've seen Washington, and we've seen Alaska were devastated by wildland fires this year. Fortunately for them, we actually had taken the time to train up our firefighters that typically were urban firefighters that most people wouldn't think as a wildland resource, get them the skills and training, and I'll make them available throughout the country so that when tragedy strikes these communities, we as a world-class city in Denver, we're able to step up and provide assistance to them. So our regionalism and our approach towards regionalism has really allowed Denver to be a leader in public safety and make sure that those who don't have the resources have access to those resources so that we make everyone safer, not only just the city of Denver, but all of Colorado, and now we're able to help out on a national level. So that's one of our new programs we're excited about. But one that I'm probably even more excited about because it's just more personal in nature is that you heard the director talk about resiliency and wellness. So we started taking a serious look and saying, you know, what are the challenges within public safety? What are the tolls it takes on the individuals who are providing that service? And we've seen 2 distinct areas. We've seen physical toll. It's very obvious. Everybody sees it, and we say, hey, we're going to engage in wellness, and the physical piece is obvious. Everybody says, yeah, you need to be in good shape, you need to take care of yourself, and you should probably try to reduce injuries. So we started on what was the easy piece and said, well, how can we make this better? We train our people, we try to keep them in good shape, but what do we do as far as making sure they're taking care of themselves? And then when they do get injured, what do we do? And so we decided, you know what? We're going to treat our firefighters just like the Denver Broncos treat their players, because after all, they're our most valuable resource. And so we engaged in a very aggressive wellness program that put a wellness coordinator in the department, but it wasn't just somebody that was going to look at stats and make suggestions. Our wellness coordinator is actually a physical therapist who has a physical therapist assistant that works underneath them, and we do all of our rehab in-house. And so when we have people come in, instead of saying, okay, you're going to get a prescription for physical therapy and you're going to go once or twice a week and you're going to go to the physical therapy clinic there, we're going to have our people come in every day when they're on modified duty, and we're going to rehab them as often as we can and still be medically prudent to get them back in shape, get them back to work. And through that program, we've actually seen a 63% reduction in the maximum injury days used per injury. So we're able to get people back to work quicker so they can be out on the street providing that essential public safety. And the other, probably even more gratifying result in there is that we said we don't want to just be reactive and address the situation after somebody gets injured, but we want to be proactive. And so we thought, well, this is going to take a while to get our people to really start coming out when they just got a little bit of soreness or they're wanting to work on some functional movement. But to our surprise, our people responded, and now there's a line out the door every single day for people wanting to get into the PTA to do some physical therapy, do some functional movement screening, or just addressing that nagging pain in the shoulder or the knee. And so what we've seen is a dramatic increase in their number of injuries reported. That would initially think, oh, that's a bad thing, right? But fortunately for us, it's when there are just a minor little bit of a sprained ankle or strained shoulder. And so what we did on the backside is we've seen a dramatic, nearly 50% decrease in the dollar cost associated with treating those injuries because we were able to get to it early. And so it kind of goes back to that, you know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure or something like that. I don't know, I might have messed it up, but that's all right. So, and then on the other side of the house, the one nobody ever wants to talk about, we want to talk about mental health. What's the strain it takes on firefighters? What's it take on police officers? And while we had some psychological services, it wasn't something everybody talked about. Everybody would come and talk about their workout, what they're doing CrossFit or this, but nobody went and talked about, well, I'm talking to a counselor, I'm doing this, I was affected by this call. And so we started really just changing the conversation. The first thing we did was said, let's have the conversation, let's talk about it openly. And so we put all of our firefighters through what we call total wellness training, where we started on the easy stuff, let's look at physical health, nutrition, all that, and then we really rolled it into the mental health part of it. And then we decided if we're going to do that, let's go right to the core of the issue. Let's go to the most severe issue that you deal with in mental health, and that's suicide. And so we started a very aggressive suicide prevention program. We were fortunate to be able to partner with the Carson J. Spencer Foundation, and I'm pleased to say that this year the Denver Fire Department received the Shining Lights of Hope Award from the Carson J. Spencer Foundation for our innovative outreach to firefighters, changing the culture, changing the mindset, making everybody talk about suicide prevention. Because little known fact is that police officers and firefighters are statistically more prone to suicide than almost any other profession. The other place that we see that is in the military. And then we also see a higher rate amongst males. Well, right now we're a male-dominated workforce. And then guess what? Colorado has a high suicide rate too. So if you take our people, it's a huge risk factor. We've taken it on, and I'm pleased to say that we've actually had people come forward that said, I was on the brink or I was considering suicide, and they've been able to reach out. And so we know that through these efforts, and we know through some additional screening we got people to engage in because of our wellness training, we can point to specific names and people of lives that were saved through this program. So that's one of the things that we're very excited about. And now, this is a recruiting year, so can't get up here and not talk about recruiting. We decided a couple years back that we're going to flip recruiting model upside down. We're going to start over. We're going to rebuild it. One of the challenges in the fire service is that we've always experienced, and it isn't just us, it's nationwide, was the diversity of the fire service. The fire service does not have a great reputation for being a diverse or as inclusive job. So we said, well, how do we change this? So what we did is we took our recruiter and said, we're not going to just have one recruiter or two recruiters, and that's the only people do recruiter, but we had our recruiter actually go out and work with all the fire stations and all the firefighters and make every one of them recruiters so it could be a force multiplier. We also said, instead of just putting out flyers, we're going to actually go out and recruit people, but we're going to mentor them too. We're going to go and put on classes and say, you know what, if you'll show that you have a commitment to us and just put in a little bit of time and come to our mentoring classes, we'll guarantee you that you get an opportunity to test with the Denver Fire Department, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but when we open up our testing slots, it's almost like buying concert tickets. Those testing slots fill up within a couple of minutes of registration opening up. We said, if you give us a little bit of time on the front end, we'll give you a guarantee to take the test on the back end. 2012 was the benchmark year that we used as our basis of the old system. In 2014, we were able to double almost every single demographic that was targeted. And so we've seen that we had a huge increase in the inclusion, but we still had a lot of work to do, because one of the things that we had noticed was, well, what about if you get somebody to take the test, how successful are they? Well, we looked at just here recently, from 2012 to 2014, we've seen that every one of the targeted groups and everybody who came to our mentoring classes had a statistically significant increase in their pass rates as well. That first time that we went through before the 2014 test, we were able to put through 400 to 450 people through our mentoring test. 2015 is a recruiting year. There'll be a test in 2016. I'm happy to say that we will put over 800 people through our mentoring program this go around, and we will almost double all the numbers again. And so it's through the great work that our recruiters are doing, taking a more natural approach versus just go out, hand out a card, go to the job fairs, check the boxes, but actually making those personal engagements, taking the time to connect with people, bring them in, show them what the department's about, and then give them some tutoring before the test. We're seeing those tremendous results. And so with that, if you know anybody who might be interested in a career in the fire service, we will be testing here very shortly. So give us a shout out and then refer them. We have fire jobs at denvergov.org that you can refer them to, and we'll have a recruiter get in contact with them. Thank you. I forgot, I got to introduce the sheriff. So it's my pleasure to introduce our new sheriff, Patrick Firman.
Well, they told us we were supposed to talk about something new that was going on with our department and keep it to about 3 to 5 minutes. That's not going to be possible at this point. So rather than take more than 3 to 5 minutes, I wanted to focus on what I thought was something significant, and that is the future and opportunity specifically. The Sheriff Department in Denver has an incredible opportunity. We have a huge amount of support for change and reform. Unfortunately, some of that support and attention has come through rightly criticized events. But ultimately, though, as a result, we find ourselves the focus of attention. We're in the news regularly for what we're doing to reform ourselves. We have the necessary resources allocated in the mayor's budget. And suddenly we've got a guy from Chicago running the place. When I think about what all this means, I see opportunity. Opportunity to educate and engage the community in what goes on behind our walls. Law enforcement agencies, in particular city jails, are traditionally closed off from the outside world. There's a lack of scrutiny and input from community agencies. But that's not the way it's going to be in Denver. Because of all this attention, we have amazing opportunities to transform the Denver Sheriff Department into something we can all be proud of. We have an opportunity to increase the number of deputies we have on staff to cut down on fatigue and overtime. And as a result, we have the opportunity to create a safe and secure environment where our program staff can focus on much-needed rehabilitation and education programs for our inmates. We have an opportunity to increase and improve the training we give to our staff to equip them to perform at their best in what is a very, very difficult job. We have an opportunity to overhaul our outdated IT systems and gather data that will allow us to make evidence-based decisions. And we even have an opportunity to build out our facilities in order to better manage our inmate population, particularly for incarcerated women who are in need of improved housing. So when I look at the Denver Sheriff's Department, I'm very optimistic about the future. We have the support of the mayor. We're actively engaging the community for input. We've had some of the best advice in the country regarding jail management and operations. We have a reform process in place with folks from all over the city, meeting weekly to hammer out the details and improve our processes. And we have an incredibly enthusiastic, talented, and proud group of people working in the department who really enjoy coming to work every day and who genuinely want things to improve for the better. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to tour all of our facilities and meet with a lot of the staff. And I've just been blown away with all the things that they're doing right. The things that they've been engaged in, the programs that we have. One example is the secure medical facility that the Sheriff's Department has in partnership with Denver Health. Only one of 3 of its kind in the country. Dedicated hospital ward dedicated solely to sick people, sick and injured inmates, right alongside the Denver Health Medical Center in Bannock Street. That we have this kind of facility, I think speaks to the way things are done in Denver. We get together and we find solutions. So I'm really optimistic when it comes to our future. We have a great team, we have a great community, and we have the momentum to bring about lasting and meaningful change. With that, I'd like to introduce Scott Field from the Office of Emergency Management. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me back again. In past years, I've mentioned in passing hazard mitigation, which is the things that we do to make our city less vulnerable to future disasters. That's kind of an abstract concept, so I thought what I'd do this year is actually talk you through some specific examples of projects that we're doing. I've mentioned previously our recovery from the September 2013 floods that we had, and I know this is an eye chart, but that bottom right-hand number is $2.7 million that we brought in federal and state assistance to help cover our costs from responding to and recovering from that. We're working with FEMA in the state now for a similar process from the flooding we had this past spring, but that's all looking backwards. What are we doing looking forward for the next disaster? Well, that's where hazard mitigation comes in. So we've been actively pursuing a number of different grant funding opportunities to help out. We've got about $8 million we've gotten committed to the so far. And I should say when we're doing it, it's not me out there with a shovel doing this work. So I got to give a big shout out to Denver Public Works, General Services Division, and Parks and Rec who are going to be doing the actual work that we're helping to fund. But there's a number of different grant opportunities. Some of these are tied specifically to the presidential disaster declaration we got, and some aren't. But here's some examples of what that looks like. So this is a large project. This is down just north of Ruby Hill Park where Sanderson Gulch feeds into the South Platte River. And this area in orange here is area that would flood during a 100-year event. And looking at it, the problem isn't actually with the South Platte. The problem is that when Sanderson Gulch fills up, it can't get to the South Platte quick enough. That water backs up and then pushes up into this area and floods that whole area. So working with Parks and Rec, we've gotten approval, and I have to put pending up here because we've gotten verbal approval, but I don't have anything in writing quite yet. But just to expand some of these culverts and cutouts so that the water isn't blocked and the water can get into the Platte quicker where we want it to go. Now, $7 million isn't cheap by any definition, but it's very cheap compared to the cost of, say, trying to acquire all those properties or elevate them or something like that. So money very well spent there. Hello? And we just died. Can you advance that for me? Thanks. Here's an example of a smaller project. This is a homeowner in South Denver in the floodplain, wants to do the right thing, but doing the right thing's a little expensive, so we got some grant assistance to help them elevate that home up. So when it's done, it'll look kind of like the house on the bottom where it's the main part of the house is elevated above the base floodplain. The bottom floor is going to be garage and non-living space and so forth. Not specific to floods, we're looking at emergency generators. In any disaster, we want to make sure that we have power to our critical infrastructure so we can help respond to the disaster and not become part of the problem. So police headquarters already has a generator, but we turned out fire headquarters did not. So we got some grant funds to add one there as well as at Police District Station 5. Generators are expensive, though. There's also a lot of maintenance and upkeep and testing that's required. So for some of our other sites, we're looking at adding quick connects and transfer switches so we can quickly bring in portable generators to hook up to them. So we've gotten some Homeland Security funding to install those at a number of our rec centers. So why are we doing this for rec centers? Why are they critical infrastructure? Why do we worry about that? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, I heard it somewhere out there. These are primary shelter sites during a disaster, and particularly if you have people with disabilities or maybe are on medical equipment, having power for these facilities is critical. I've been mostly talking about grant money, but just so you know, the city also has some skin in the game. We were able to get $800,000 out of the 2015 budget to buy generators for additional critical facilities, other fire and police stations, the animal shelter, and the new Central Denver Rec Center, as well as to buy some more portable generators to hook up to all these quick connects I've been talking about. Planning projects aren't sexy and exciting, but they're important. We're looking at one of our kind of worst case scenario disasters would be if something ever happened to the Cherry Creek Dam. Not considered a high probability event, but the number of people that would be potentially affected if something did happen to it, if it started to overtop or something, is huge. So we got some grant funds to sit down with the City of Aurora and Arapahoe County and our other neighbors and plan what we would do, how we would notify and evacuate those people out of that area during disaster. Again, not really a high probability event, but we think what we learned from this process will also be used to inform our general evacuation planning. And then also, we do have a hazard mitigation plan for the city that kind of describes our goals and how we work to make Denver more resilient, and that plan's due for a refresh, so we were able to get some funds to help us redo that. In fact, as soon as I leave here, we're going to review requests for proposal for that. So, and that's it. like I say, the bottom line is we brought in so far about $11 million to the city over the last 2 years for response, recovery, and mitigation purposes, which by my math has paid all of our salaries in my office for about the next 16 years. So I think we're doing okay there. So, and with that, I'll be followed by my friend Scott Bookman, Chief Paramedic at Denver Health Division. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thanks to everybody for coming. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Josh isn't standing at the back tapping his watch at me. So, Scott, thanks for teeing me up, talking about vulnerability. Inherently, people who call 911 for medical services are vulnerable, and they have reached the point where they can no longer manage their own medical conditions, and they call us for help. Essentially a service of last resort. And it is our responsibility to continually advance the treatment that we provide for the most vulnerable in our community. And I'm going to give you a quick update on a couple of projects that we have going on now. For those of you who have attended this luncheon in the past, I've discussed the Combat Trial. And the Combat Trial is a collaborative partnership between the Denver Health Paramedic Division and the Department of Defense. About 5 years ago, the DoD came to us and said, can you help us figure out a way to better care for our wounded military members in the field? And in partnership with the Emergency Department at Denver Health and Trauma Services, we have come up with a revolutionary way to store, thaw, and deliver frozen blood products in the field. We are the only EMS agency in the entire world who has figured out how to carry fresh frozen plasma in these really cool nitrogen-cooled cases and then warm it up in less than 3 minutes and deliver it to the most critically injured within our community. I'm proud to announce that we are more than halfway through the trial right now. We have just administered fresh frozen plasma to the 78th patient in the last 18 months, and we anticipate completing the trial in the next 18 months. What this is going to do is it is going to revolutionize trauma care for those in an urban environment, in a rural environment, and in the battlefield environment. And this is a way to impact the way lives are saved throughout the world, and it is being done in the streets of Denver, and it is remarkable. Another subset of our most vulnerable is our children. And it's a subject that we don't like to talk about very often, and it's hard. And as a lot of people have alluded to, the wellness of our providers is forefront in our minds. And when caring for the sick and injured children in our community, our providers are challenged greatly. And so we have recently implemented a new pediatric resuscitation program. It's a program known as HandTevi, and we are one of the first EMS agencies in the world to adopt this. And what this system allows us to do is it allows our providers to rapidly initiate care for the most critically injured pediatric patients in our community. And this is a subset of patients that we don't see very often, but when we see them, the initiatives need to be done quickly, and they need to be done perfectly. And for years, we have not had a tool in the field that has allowed us to treat these patients because they vary from this big to this big, and all of the dosages vary greatly when we treat them. And about 6 months ago, we implemented the HandTevi system, and we were getting our preliminary data back, and we were starting to see greatly increased resuscitation rates in our most critically injured pediatric patients. Finally, we have worked in collaboration with the police department and the fire department to better provide for people in our community who are addicted to drugs. And we need to acknowledge that there's a large part of our community that makes mistakes. And there is a drug out there now known as Narcan, which can be administered rapidly by first responders to save people who have overdosed on heroin. And for years, this was a tightly controlled medication that was only delivered by ALS providers or in the hospital. And research has shown that the quicker Narcan is delivered, the better survival rates are. And we have worked with Chief White and Chief Tade, our medical director, Dr. McReynolds, to ensure that all of our first responders have Narcan available to deliver to those who have overdosed in the field as rapidly as possible. So I want to thank the chiefs for working with us to ensure that our community is a little bit safer for this part of our population. And then finally, where are we going in the future? What am I going to talk to you about next year at this luncheon? And that is community paramedics. And so by now you're all aware that the healthcare system is changing, and it is changing rapidly under the Affordable Care Act. And that starts with us. And years ago, you wouldn't call for a paramedic. You would call your doctor and they would come make a house call. Well, the world is coming full circle, and the concept of house calls is coming back around. But rather than using physicians to make these house calls, we're starting to use paramedics. And this is a way to provide better service to people in their homes, to make sure that they stay healthier for longer, and to reduce overall healthcare costs. And so we are embarking on a journey of identifying the best way to embrace the community paramedic model and to bring it to the city and county of Denver. So thank you. I look forward to talking to you about it next year, and I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Ashley Kilroy, the Executive Director of Marijuana Policy for Denver.
Good afternoon. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about marijuana and how our city's regulating marijuana here in Denver. So I think first what I'll talk about is what we have been doing over the last 2 years, now what we've learned over the last 2 years as we look back, and where we think we might be going. This year, over the last 2 years, we spent a lot of time just building the fundamental regulatory framework from scratch and getting businesses up and licensed. And that was not an easy feat because we didn't know what to expect. Just figuring out what are the types of risks that these businesses could be exposed to, could expose their neighbors to, just figuring that type of stuff out was pretty difficult. We worked hand in hand with the fire department and the police department and a number of different agencies in the city. And maybe I'll back up and tell you how we're managing marijuana. We have a small team out of the mayor's office that's kind of directing the policy, and then we work with all the other agencies throughout the city who work on marijuana. So when we first started looking at, we were getting ready to start regulating marijuana, simple things. Marijuana industries extract hash oil from machines. Well, the fire department, Chief Joe, had never seen a hash oil extraction machine, and we had to spend time learning about it, learning what it does, how we can make it safer, working hand in hand with the industry, and ultimately the fire department came up with a permitting process for these hash oil machines. So then as we've been continuing down these 2 years, we're out there, we're out in the field, we're inspecting these businesses, we're looking to make sure that they're staying in compliance, and we're always learning, and their technologies are always changing. So again, just I think a few months ago, Chief Joe's team realized that some of that butane was leaking out of these machines during the processes due to some user error. So we had to back up, we had big meetings, we met with architects of these machines and engineers and the fire department and a lot of other safety people, and the fire department determined that we need to put a regulation in place that they would have explosion-proof rooms. So all of this has been a work in process, and I know we have some individuals here from some of the industry, and some of the industry has been absolutely great and working hand in hand with us, and we would not be able to figure out the fixes that we figured out without them sharing that information with us. So we've been tracking and monitoring, making changes where we need to. Things are changing quickly in this industry. Now stopping, we're at about 2 years. On January 1st, 2016 will be 2 years since retail sales. And I told the mayor a quote I read in the Denver Post last week was in the editorial section, and it said something like, "The full story on marijuana is not yet written." And that's true. I mean, we feel like maybe we've been in this for a while, but it's 2 years. This industry is still in its infancy, and there's still a lot we don't know. But there are a few things that we do know. And right now in Denver, we have over 1,000 marijuana licenses. We have over 1,000 marijuana licenses operating out of 440 unique locations. So how that could be is somebody could have a license for a store and a license for a grow and a license for a manufacturer of an infused product all over the same roof, all under the same roof. Starting in September, we held a lot of big work group meetings that included members of the industry, members of our business community, realtors and developers and moms and neighborhoods, and kind of went through everything and really looked at this and realized we're getting to a point where we're saturated. We probably have enough enough marijuana businesses in Denver. Access is not an issue for our citizens. They can get weed if they want weed. So we're looking at that. We're also looking at the fact that there's some issue that we might be getting close to overproduction. The production numbers are hard. The state did a study about 1.5 years ago, so those numbers are sort of old, but we're working on that. We're looking at that, and we're just committed to you and everyone that we're going to continue to do what we've done, to review the data, to assess and monitor, track and make changes where we need to. And then finally, I'd just like to say, even though I stand up here and say, yes, we have over 1,000 licenses operating out of 440 unique locations, marijuana definitely has brought a small increase in our GDP, a small increase in our jobs, additional businesses to Denver, but they bring about less than 2% of our city's total revenue and about less than 1% of our workforce. Now, maybe if you add in some of the other businesses that support them, maybe that's another percentage or two. But really, the real story in Denver is not marijuana. It's everything else that all of the rest of you guys have been doing. We know that Denver is growing and our economy is booming on all sectors, and under the mayor's tenure, we've attracted a lot of new, different type of businesses and business startups. So while marijuana is out there and it's a part of what we do, it's a small part of Denver, and Denver's doing great, and we're going to keep keeping an eye on marijuana and making changes when we need to. So thank you. And last but not least, Greg LaBerge, the director of our crime lab.
Thanks for that, Ashley. The crime lab is primarily a scientific organization, so our job is to evaluate evidence from the crime scene all the way to the courtroom. So one of the things that we do is we provide an unbiased evaluation of evidence that we recover at crime scenes and use many scientific processes to try to understand what the evidence is telling us about any given crime. Mr. Morrissey mentioned the Crime Gun Intelligence Center, so if you can go to the next slide. Chief Quinones and I were in Chicago last weekend to accept the Excellence in Forensic Science Award from the IACP. So this is a great honor for the city of Denver and for this collaborative team. And one of the things we won it under was current or past collaboration. And I think that speaks to Denver's strength is we're very collaborative people here. And this project is a collaboration between ATF, Denver PD, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the District Attorney's Office, Aurora PD, and Lakewood. And pretty soon we're going to expand that into Jeffco as well. One of the things that makes the program so strong is that it didn't just start 2 years ago. This program actually started back in the mid-90s, where our firearms analysts entered shell casings into databases proactively since about 1996. So we have a very large database to work from in 2012 when we set this project up. We modeled it off of our cold case program, which was very successful in the city of Denver. So we looked at the back end of our cold case project, and we basically modeled the Crime Gun Intelligence Center to mirror how aggressively we were following up on cold cases. And so we built teams around that, all the way again from the crime scene to the courtroom. And Mr. Morrissey spoke about the success, and this was quite an honor for the city of Denver and for this team, because it's on the international stage at the Major Chiefs Conference that was just in Chicago. The other thing we have to do as a scientific organization is stay on top of change and stay on top of developing changes in the field. So if you can go to the next slide. We applied for and received every research grant we applied for this year. We received that money. So these 4 projects are worth over about $400,000 from the Department of Justice. And we actually, as one crime lab, received half of the funding under the solicitations that was handed out in the entire United States. There are 4 areas that we're focusing on in the next about 18 months to 2 years. The first thing picks up on what Ashley was mentioning is the marijuana policy. So one of the things of the new law is that we have to be able to quantitate the amount of THC in marijuana and marijuana products. What makes that challenging is especially the edibles, because marijuana, or THC, is soluble in fats. So vegetable oil, butter, that THC will go into solution in those, and those are often mixed with sugars and other things to make edibles. Well, that's very difficult for our scientists to separate that from the sugar and the other materials in the edibles. So we have a major research project that we were funded to do research into figuring out how to do that. No one's done it before. So one of the downstream impacts of legalization was all of these different myriad compounds and edibles that marijuana is now found in. We have to figure out how to analyze that. So that's the first project. The second is picking up on research that we've done for over a decade in terms of speeding up sexual assault kit processing. As you know, there's a new law, House Bill 1020, which mandates testing of all sexual assault kits collected. So one of the things that we're challenged with is we have to try to find, in a male-female encounter, we have to try to find those sperm cells that contain DNA, separate that from everything that isn't male, and then process that for DNA to put on the database to look for potential suspects. So one of the things we've done is we've gotten research funding to try to speed that up. One of our scientists had an idea and came to me with the idea, and I said, by all means, try. He wrote up a very good grant proposal, and it was funded by the National Institute of Justice. The third one is latent fingerprints. One of the things that we're very successful as a crime laboratory is with the comparison of latent fingerprints from the crime scene very quickly against our databases looking for potential suspects. And when our scientists go to court, they have to explain what a match between fingerprints means. And one of the areas that we've been challenged as a forensic community, mainly started in about 1999, was that they can't provide any statistical weight to those matches. So when we go into court with DNA matches, we have a way to calculate the statistical weight or the statistical impact that that match has. That's currently not something that can be done with fingerprint evidence. So working with some researchers in statistics, we put together a proposal to try to evaluate that using our database, and that was also funded by the Justice Department. The last area is also relevant to the Crime Gun Intelligence Center, which is the database system for shell casings. And that shell casing database is used every day very proactively, as been mentioned before. But one of the questions that still remains is how good are the computer images for matching to each other? We rely heavily on the computer for that database, but no one has ever done a properly designed study to say how good those matches are on the computer versus our scientists putting the evidence actually on a microscope and comparing it. So we also got funded under that solicitation. So it's been a great year for our organization, and we look forward to providing results and research impact of all of these projects in the next 2 years. So one of the things about employee engagement that's very important in our environment is all of these people are scientists and they're trained in science. And to keep scientists engaged, you have to have interesting projects and things in addition to the routine casework that we do. The majority, over 90% of our work is caseload, to try to keep those people engaged. And I think that these research programs and research grants provide them with some overtime funds, but also keeps them innovative and creative, which helps to make a better and foster a better work environment within our agency. So with that, I'm the last speaker with no one to introduce. So thanks for your attention and your attendance, and thanks to Josh for inviting me.
All right, thanks to all of you for sharing with us what's new and different. We have about 15 minutes for the roundtable discussion. I just want to let all of you know this is not going to be a gotcha moment from a reporter to our public officials. This really is all about getting to know them and sharing a little bit about who they are. So why don't we start with the new sheriff? What will be the number one thing that the number one issue, the number one policy? What's the first thing on your list?
First thing is to get to know the department. I mean, I've been here 2 weeks now. I think I've gotten through most of our facilities and most of our departments and toured. I haven't met nearly all of the staff. So I'm anxious to meet the staff, to have the opportunity to talk with the staff, to kind of get a lay of the land and put all of these little pieces together that I've been gathering over the last few weeks.
And then after that?
And then after that, we're going to sit down and put together a plan for moving forward.
All right. I'm curious, how many parents are in the room who are concerned about marijuana use for underage kids? Okay, my children go to Denver School of the Arts, where, in my observation, the marijuana issue is rampant. And it's been hard as a parent to try to convince upon them, no, it is still not okay. They're very convinced that it's legal. I'm wondering, number one, what is being done when people are pulled over for driving buzzed, as we've come to call it? How do we actually test if they're currently buzzed without getting it confused with what may already be in their system?
Well, first of all, driving under the influence of anything that can impair your driving is illegal.
Right.
So you can have a prescription drug from a doctor. If it impairs your driving, it is illegal. So marijuana falls into that category. So and we have all of our officers are trained, obviously, to be able to detect individuals that are driving under influence. But we have a special group of officers that are even more highly trained to do that. So if they're really suspicious that someone is driving under the influence and it's not absolute, then obviously we call in one of the officers that are qualified to do that. So marijuana just falls in that category of driving under the influence. Now there are some studies that, and I forget the number, so many nanograms automatically qualifies you for being under the influence. That is still something that's sort of in debate as it relates to the state, what's legal and what's not legal. But we actually, as a department, and most law enforcement agencies, will actually charge someone if they're driving under the influence, regardless if it's a prescribed drug or whether it's an alcohol or whether it's marijuana or not.
So does that mean there really isn't a test that's given right then to decipher on marijuana?
There is a test, but it's kind of questionable how absolute that is.
Okay.
So from a police perspective, the safest approach is to create that probable cause, reasonable suspicions that will parlay into probable cause to make the arrest for driving under the influence.
Okay.
And Molly, I can address the piece of what we're doing with regard to youth prevention and youth usage. With the marijuana tax dollars, 3.5% of that was set aside for regulation, education, and enforcement. So overall, it was about $6 million, and a third of that has been set aside for youth prevention. This year, we rolled out one grant that was overseen by the Office of Children's Affairs that was to engage children in pro-social activities, because we all know, really, one of the best ways to keep our kids out of trouble is to be engaged in after-school activities. So the Office of Children's Affairs used that money to extend some of their most productive programs through the summer, and then built in a course called Healthy Lifestyles that didn't just address don't smoke pot, but addressed everything about how do you make good decisions, what does marijuana do to your body, and actually the training on the age that it is legal and it isn't legal for individuals under 21. We've got another grant program that was rolled out about 2 weeks ago that's going to be addressing kids who have already been engaged in marijuana and what are some of the opportunities for them for diversion and intervention. We've also supported the state. They have a mass media campaign directed at youth. We've also supported that and have provided some monies to Denver Health to track some of the health data so that we have that to make some good decisions going forward.
Okay. Yep. Thanks to both of you. Scott Bookman, you talked about the problem with heroin. How big of a problem is it in our community these days? Is there a way to quantify it?
It's hard to quantify because not everybody will call 911 when they've had an overdose, and that's kind of the biggest push behind giving Narcan to everyone. And so they have essentially allowed any physician can prescribe Narcan to the partner of a user. And so the goal is to give this very cheap and very life-saving drug to anybody who may come into contact with somebody who's overdosed on heroin. And so not only are we seeing heroin, we're also seeing overdoses on prescription meds on the rise as well. And so there's kind of a competing battle there in where people are getting their drug, but in the end, it's still the narcotic that we need to reverse.
And while they're both a problem, I know you want to say something, Mitch, I'll give you a second, but while they're both a problem, is one bigger than the other, or has heroin surpassed prescription drugs?
You know, as people face challenges paying for their medications because of a lack of health care, we're actually seeing some people who would be getting prescription narcotics for pain relief turning to heroin because that is actually how they can kill their pain cheaper.
All right.
That's
DA Mitch
exactly
Morrissey.
what we're seeing happen. The way you know if there's an increase in heroin in your community, usually deaths, but emergency room visits, overdoses, increasing cases, and what we're seeing, and anybody that has a medicine cabinet full of old painkillers, get rid of them. We're finding high school kids that are getting addicted to painkillers, and then they turn to heroin. And we have a big heroin problem among the youth in our city, in our state, and throughout the United States. The governor of Delaware did his entire state of the state on the heroin problem they have there. It's It's a very real problem. It's not discussed a lot, but it's there, and there's a lot of kids in our community addicted to heroin.
Thank you. Scott Field, Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, you talked about preparing all the things that are in place should disaster occur or flooding again. I'm curious with the report last night, if any of you saw it, on I think it was Ted Koppel and the power grid, the big issues with our power grid. What are we doing in terms of technology in our city and metro area to protect against an attack on our technology?
Are you thinking from like a cybersecurity standpoint?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And actually, funny, I was just talking with some of our representatives from Excel Energy about that before we sat down. Cybersecurity is the big, I don't want to say buzzword because I don't want to diminish it, but that's definitely something that at the federal, state, and local level is a big push right now. One of the biggest challenges that we have with that is, with the possible exception of you, none of us up here were hired for our cyber skills, I'm guessing, right? So we have these meetings where there's, a bunch of cops and firefighters, emergency managers and so forth, and we all can pretty much turn our computers on, but that's the limitation of our expertise. So we have some phenomenal security information officers, not just for the city of Denver, but for a lot of organizations, but getting them in the room with public safety folks to kind of address what the problem is. And I know I'm not sure if I'm directly answering your question, but at this point, a large part of it is just scoping out what exactly needs to be done. I don't know if that answered your question.
Okay, so we have a little less than 10 minutes here. I thought it'd be fun. You can tell us whatever you want, but I'm going to do a lightning round here that starts with, if you really knew me, you would know what? It could be something that your department is dealing with, or it could be something that nobody would ever guess about you personally, because this is all about just showcasing you and getting to know you. How's that sound?
I thought you said there weren't going to be any gotcha questions.
Does that feel like a gotcha? It could be, I have 10 kids or 3 kids, or I don't know. I thought it'd be fun.
Okay,
Would this be fun? All right, thank you.
I'll give you a couple. If you really knew me professionally, you would know that I'm just a real driver. I work hard, and I take my responsibilities very seriously with regards to our citizenry. And on a personal side, if you really knew me, you would know that I have a huge, huge therapeutic moment with shoes. So I purchase a lot of them, and I like them.
All right, thanks for sharing. Chief?
If you really know me, you know that I'm a really wonderful, nice guy. Contrary to what you read in the newspaper or hear from the union. But professionally, if you knew me, that you would know that I am relentless and passionate about what I see our responsibilities are as it relates to being police officers. That we have a commitment to our communities to provide the very best service, and the key to that is through this collaborative relationship that we often talk about. If you knew me personally, you would know that I'm a grandfather with 3 children, 3 grandchildren, and I love to see them come and I love to see them go. And that I am a overly competitive person, and I'm a very aggressive bowler. And I often tell people, and I have 13 perfect 300 games, by the way, and I normally get those games when I have bad days because the pins have a lot of faces on them.
All right.
All right. If you really knew me, you'd know I'm very OCD when it comes to trying to make things right and perfect all the time, and probably to a fault on fairness. I believe that we have to not only treat our citizens fair, we have to treat all of our employees fair, and I have this, like I said, almost an OCD effect on making sure that we're always fair to everybody, because I think if you're always making sure that you're trying to treat everybody equally and in a fair manner, that ultimately will give you the outcomes that you're looking for no matter what your goals or objectives are. And then on a personal level, you would know that same mindset also probably takes me away from the one thing where I think I'm guilty of not being fair, and that's spending time with my 3 children, because I have 3 young children. And so that's probably my one biggest regret too, is that I get so passionate going one way that I actually rob from the people that are probably the most important to me.
How many of you up here can relate to that? All right.
If you really knew me, probably contrary to what Scott had said, I'm a technology geek. I love computers, especially Apple. I guess I'm an Apple fanboy, but I will use technology if it takes longer, just so that I could use technology.
Good. Okay. We're inviting you onto our new cybersecurity task force, so that's great. Professionally, if you really knew me, you'd know that I feel very strongly about regional partnerships. These meetings, we tend to talk about Denver specifically, but a large chunk of my time is involved with regional and national groups, whether it's the Denver Urban Area Security Initiative. I sit on the FEMA National Advisory Council, so that sort of learning from other cities. I'm going next week out to the big city emergency managers, so I spend a lot of time and feel very strongly about learning from what other people are doing well and what other people are doing less well. And if you knew me personally, or if you saw my photo up there earlier, you might have noticed that I don't necessarily match my photo anymore. So I've never had a beard before, and still not sure how that's going.
Round of applause for the beard, yes? How many people say shave it? I knew that would happen, but I thought it'd be fun anyway.
I think something that you don't know about me, but that both my wife and my entire command staff know about me, is that I have an incredibly unhealthy relationship with org charts and whiteboards. And I believe that there's no problem in the world, whether it's at work or at home, that can't be solved with a big whiteboard, a lot of markers, and a lot of boxes. And then I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to share something personal that is devastating. My son is 4.5, and while he thinks being a paramedic is really cool, he's decided he wants to be a firefighter.
Oh, this is hard, but I guess I would say, personally, most people probably don't know, or you do know, that the most important thing to me are my children and my husband and my animals, and I have lots of them. And that I love my work too, that I really always have loved what I do. I've been with the city in multiple capacities for almost 20 years. I was a city attorney at one point. I served on the Career Service Board for a couple of years. I conducted workplace investigations on a contract level, then came back and was with the Department of Safety, and now in the mayor's office. So that's it.
Professionally, I think the one thing I'd like to say is how mission-driven the crime lab staff is. The people at the crime lab are very tuned in on the mission, and in crime laboratories, that's tough to do. Many of the crime laboratories that operate are at the state level, so they don't have the intimate relationship with detectives and district attorneys and investigators that our crime lab has, and I think that pays off because our people can see the impact of their work every day. So I'm real proud of the group. The group's focus on the mission, and you hear a lot of kudos for the crime lab, but mainly that's just because of great work ethic that they have. I'm real proud of that, and I think it really comes down to that. I think it's very simple, really, is they do their jobs and they do it well and they're proud of what they do. Personally, I come from a very strange small town in Canada. And so that's why I have this accent. But the one thing about me that's different that probably people don't know is I'm actually a pretty good accordionist. I play the accordion, right? At parties and things. And that goes with my father was a tenor. My father was a wonderful tenor that also played the accordion and the piano. So I guess it runs in the family. And my grandmother used to play for the silent movies in Quebec. So it's kind of a family thing there.
We'll have our entertainment for next year.
The mic working. I think that if you really knew me, you'd find out I was left-handed, and I think that explains an awful lot of things. It comes in handy when I play tennis. I think that if you knew me, you'd know that I'm one of the luckiest people that you would probably meet. I have an incredible office full of people that are committed about the mission that we have at the Denver DA's office. And personally, I'm lucky enough to have my wife, Maggie, who is right over here. And she is...
Where are you, Maggie?
Helped me raise kids. And I used to get introduced as Maggie's husband, so I know that it's very important. She's raised over $1 million to help us open the Rosandom Domestic Violence Center, which we will have open by May. And so if you really knew me, you'd know just kind of one of those guys that got incredibly lucky in life.
All right. Thanks to all of you for sharing a little bit about your personal side as well.